Hey folks, my name is Jake and I'm here with Jean-Luc, and as of now, Cyberpunk's 1.2 patch is now live. This is a huge patch. Jean-Luc, I don't know if you've had a chance to look through all of those patch notes, but it's thick. There's a lot there.
I don't got all day, man. I got work to do.
Yeah.
I tried looking a little bit over my lunch break, and I was like, this is too much.
We're going to go over some of the main points, but rather than go through the entire patch list, explain to you what's there, we figured the two of us are just going to play some Cyberpunk today. I played a lot on PC. Jean-Luc played a lot on PS4 and a little bit on PS5 as well. And we're just going to share our experience, talk about some of the bigger fixes, some things that still might need to be fixed, and whether or not you should play Cyberpunk 2077 now. We'll do separate evaluations, more or less. I'll talk about PC. Jean-Luc will talk about PS4, PS5. Obviously, these aren't official. If you want to check out the GameSpot review, be sure to check that out. But anyway, without further ado, maybe we should just go over some of the bigger points of what this patch does. Jean-Luc, do you want to kick it off?
So, this is primarily a bug fixing patch. So they pretty much just went through and they fixed a lot of the bugs that relate to things like quest breaking, NPCs getting stuck, achievements not popping up, items like dialogue not properly playing or repeating, UI getting stuck on the menus, that one thing where you like T-pose out of your car. I didn't see that when I played, so I think they fixed that one. But it's pretty much just fixing things in the game that I think were preventing people from playing forward, or were weird stuff like, items floating in the world, things like that.
I did still have that issue. There was an instance where I gave someone an item and the item was just floating in the world. And I was like, guess that's still there. Didn't seem as bad. But yeah, I guess that's the other thing to point out. There was a lot to fix in Cyberpunk, and even though this is a very lengthy 1.2 patch, they've said that they have another patch scheduled that will address even more of the issues. But nonetheless, this is still a pretty big chunk. Some of the really big ones are, at least for me, was changing the icons on vehicles you can purchase. That, we talked about this before, but that drove me kind of crazy a little bit because I like having the map look clear when I've done all the quests, but I still had all of these exclamation points on the map that were just telling me to go buy a car. Now those are gone. Those are just car symbols. That's great. Really small, but it's one of those small things that, for me personally, just helps a little bit. It adds to it. It feels good.
Yeah, I agree. That's maybe one of the more significant of the, actually changing the structure as opposed to just, fixing a bug. There are a couple other key ones. They've improved the handling on the vehicles, which, as we'll get into in a bit, I didn't really notice all that much on console, but maybe PC it's a little more significant.
So even in the patch notes, they recommend not messing with it. Or no, in the option settings, they recommend if you're using a controller, you don't mess with it. So it's mostly for mouse and keyboard, but we can talk about that later. The next thing, though, is the minimap is still not fixed. Now, that's something I wanted to bring up. I guess it wasn't really broken, but a lot of people have requested a dynamic minimap that zooms in and out the faster you go. That hasn't been fixed. That's something I still notice. It's hard to miss when you miss turns constantly, especially when you're going really fast. And then the other big thing that CD Projekt Red have got a lot of criticism for are the police response times. Now, they have delayed the response time. I tested out a little bit in the desert because that was the one people were most frustrated with, because you'd blow up a vehicle or shoot someone and then NCPD would spawn behind you. Now, that still happens. They still spawn behind you, but it takes a longer amount of time. First, there's a drone that shows up, and then a NCPD officer will spawn, and then more will spawn depending on how you interact with that. It still bugs me because it's not a fix. It's just, it feels like a Band-Aid over the issue. And as you said, these updates aren't game-changing. They're just fixes. And I think fixing that issue is a lot more than just a quick patch fix. I feel like they'd have to rewrite a lot of the AI, but I don't know. I'm not a game designer, but what I can say is that it doesn't make a huge difference, in my opinion. It's nice that maybe they don't charge you right away, but still, you shoot them a couple times, you get 3 stars, and NCPDs will surround you no matter where you are. Like, I was out in the middle of the desert and still there. But anyway, like I said, I played on the PC version. I did a couple missions. I explored the outskirts of Night City. I explored all through Night City. It ran pretty decently. I didn't run into many issues. However, I originally played on PC. I didn't run into many moment-to-moment issues. I ran into a lot of bugs, but the game itself ran pretty decently back then. Seems to run even better now, even if it is just nominally better. It's slight, but I noticed better. It feels less duct taped together, if that makes sense. And then beyond that, didn't find any crashes. Didn't have any crashes. I played for about 2.5, 3 hours. Didn't have any of that. Obviously, that could still happen. I didn't play as much as I would have liked. And then the steering sensitivity, which we talked about earlier, which you can adjust sensitivity. It's set at 100, which means your vehicles will be the most sensitive possible, but you can lower that, and as the game actually recommends, you should only do that if you're using mouse and keyboard. Makes sense, because when I did try to drive with mouse and keyboard, it was difficult, but even with those settings, driving with mouse and keyboard is still difficult. At the end of the day, I'm still going to be using a controller for that. But I guess that's a nice option to have for folks who maybe don't have a controller, don't like using a controller, but it's not going to make driving with a mouse and keyboard fun necessarily.
Yeah.
But those are kind of my overall thoughts. I did run into some bugs still. There were some funny ones. One example was I was just driving around the outskirts and all of a sudden cars were just flying into the sky. However, there were two bugs I ran into. One was a quest bug where the character wouldn't go to where they were supposed to go for me to finish the quest. So that was kind of annoying. And then the other big one was I forgot what it's called, a NCPD scanner mission that won't complete for me. It says I need to defeat all of the hostiles in the area. There are none. I've killed them all, and it still doesn't register that I've beaten it. I've reloaded that place so many times. It's been an issue for a couple months now. Can't figure out why it's not working. This patch didn't fix that. Other than that, it seems more stable on PC. Still buggy, but not as bad as it used to be. I think there's a reasonable amount of jank and bugs that I think if it shipped like this, it would have been a bit more understandable.
Yeah. And I would say that is my experience with the PS5 version that I gotta check out. In my opinion, the PS5 version at launch was actually a pretty solid version of the game. It ran decently well. Not as good as the PC, obviously, but it was a functional version of the game. It's just that the game was so buggy in other ways that it was still kind of hard to recommend. Now that most of the bugs have been fixed, my brief time playing the PS5 version felt pretty good. I was like, yeah, I could see myself playing this version of the game. I didn't encounter any of the kind of usual bugs that I encountered when I tested the PS5 version back at launch. Stuff like pop-in isn't really a big deal. It ran relatively smooth. I would say if you have a PS5 and have the game and you were waiting to play it because of all the bugs, now might be a good time to hop into the game.
I can't get it on PSN yet.
Just can't get it on PSN yet. You had to have bought it before. So, but that brings us to the base PS4 version, which I guess, yeah, all the bugs or a lot of the bugs are gone, but this isn't a performance patch, and the game still runs like garbage. It is horribly framey, terrible input lag, menus pop up and take forever to load in. It is, in my opinion, still very much unplayable, and, as we've said, this patch isn't claiming it was going to make it playable in that way. This is largely about just fixing, quest bugs and other oddities. But if you were looking at this expecting finally I can play it on my base PS4, nope, you're going to have to wait for another patch that is hopefully going to address the specific performances of the PS4. Although, in my opinion, I kind of doubt. I very much question if it'll even be possible to get this game to ever run well on a base PS4. It's just it like, because it's just a loading issue. Like like the game is just trying to load in so much, and like it's so high demanding that I'm like, I just don't think a base PS4 could possibly do it without doing some serious work. So I'm sure CD Projekt's going to try. We'll definitely check it out whenever they put up the next patch that tries to address those issues. But if you have a base PS4, I would still not recommend playing it. It's not there. And maybe wait for the PS5 or get it on PC at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the PC is, I think I recommend it probably about as much as I did when it launched. Obviously, the less bugs make it pretty nice, but in terms of optimization, how it runs pretty well still. I think the bigger issue right now, I think if you've got a PC and you're on the fence whether or not you should play it, I think it more comes down to, is this the kind of game you want to play? That's not really the point of this video, but right. A lot of the issues that we had and reviewers had and just, folks on Reddit and stuff had with this game weren't simply the bugs and optimization. A lot of it had to do with the way the story was told for some people, the way the AI responds to different things. So a lot of that kind of comes down to where you fall there. I would say if performance or optimization or bugs was something you were worried about, bugs in particular, like if you didn't want to play when there was a lot of bugs, then yeah, now's the time to play on PC. I think you can probably get started on it, maybe take your time, and then the next optimization patch will come out, or the next big patch will come out later, and it'll be nothing. But I don't think you're going to run into any huge game-breaking bugs if you just want to play through on PC.
Yeah, that's pretty much my opinion. I mean, this feels like a patch meant for people who put the game down because they were waiting for it to just kind of be in a more stable state, versus people who finished the game like us and are kind of waiting for those like bigger, meatier updates that maybe do some more drastic changes for the game. And it's like, now's my chance to go play it again and see how it's improved. For those people, keep waiting. I think you're not going to get anything for a while, maybe not even until the next big DLC expansion, whenever that comes, which is, I think, fall is their current slate for that. So if you already beat the game and you were hoping for something more substantial, you're just going to have to wait a little longer.
Well, anyway, that's Cyberpunk's 1.2 patch. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, or you can find us on Twitter. And with that, we will see y'all next time.